Welcome back to another episode of Undefining. This is a space where we break down labels, challenge expectations, and dive deep into the creative journeys that shape us. I'm your host, Glo Butler, and today we're exploring the art of self-expression through poetry, film, and storytelling. Our guest is someone who truly understands the power of words. She's a poet, a filmmaker, and educator, someone who uses her craft to navigate identity, emotion, and personal evolution. In this episode, The Poetry of Undefining, we get into the journey of finding your artistic voice, working through emotions in your creative process, and redefining identities on your own terms. Let's get into it. We want to welcome Grei here, she, they pronouns. Grei is a poet, filmmaker, and educator from Queens, New York. Grei has been a featured poet at the New York City Poetry Festival, legendary SOBs, Sunny O. Westbury, DePauw University, Triad Theater, and several popular open mic venues in New York City. She has been published in several anthologies from the Dominican Writers Association, as well as Sarah Lawrence College's Lumina Journal. Grei is a former 2018-2019 Fulbright U.S. student researcher and conducted research on the intersections of film and folklore in the Dominican Republic, where they created their award-winning short film, Adera La Coada. We're going to correct that later.
We come back to that. Yeah.
We're going to come back to that because we're going to talk about that. While Grei is currently senior program director with an education nonprofit, they are also a member of the artist collective MasQueerAde. Dope show. We'll talk about that too, where they co-host a monthly open mic for queer identifying people. For Grei, the arts are essential to understanding the self community and the secret inner workings of the universe. It's going to be an exciting conversation, so we're going to have to go ahead and let's dive in. Let's do this. All right, so I think I just want to kick it off, started with your journey. What inspired you to start poetry? Like what was how did poetry find you?
I think poetry found me at a very young age.
Okay.
This feels very timely. I was just writing a poem. Shout out to King Kamayera and the Dope Poets. They put out a prompt that was like, I've been writing these poems, and that put me in the space to think about, how long have I been writing these poems, and when and how did that start for me? And I think as a young person, I was really sad. I was a little sad girl. Yeah. Aww. And I think poetry gave me really descriptive language for that kind of like eternal sadness that I felt as a young person. So it started in that way, and then as I got older, my brother, who had moved here from Miami, he's my half brother, he was teaching some seniors at Long Island City High School in Queens every Saturday. He was teaching them poetry, and it was called the Future Authors Club. So I'm like 14 years old. My brother's like, hey sis, I know you love reading and writing, like you want to come with me to this club? And for like a year, I was just hanging out with these seniors and like reading Allen Ginsberg and Junot Diaz and Herman Hesse, just like a lot of, I guess, above my age level at that time type of writing, but that really helped me kind of mature my voice early on. And then I got through high school. That was like the first time I ever performed poetry in front of people at a internship that I was a part of. But what really changed the game was when I got to college, and I thought I was going to go into communications because I was like, I'm cool with talking to people. I could probably do public relations or something like that.
Finding something relative to where you can
something that would pay me.
Exactly.
Something that's going to pay me.
Hello.
Because I'm like, yeah, I could write, but what's the point of studying it if I can do it, right?
Exactly.
But then I got to college and I had my seminar class my freshman year. That was a memoir writing class, and I did really well. I got first place in the entire freshman class for that essay. And then my English professor was like, you should really consider majoring in English. And I was like, I'm gonna be broke for the rest of my life. But I think it's if it was with me when I was young, then maybe it's something worth cultivating and investing in. So I did end up majoring in English, and that kind of just gave me opened the world up in terms of what's available for writing, right? Like the poetic tools, the devices that really take what can be a journal entry that you thought was a poem, but take it to the next level, right? Of this is actually something masterful. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
college changed it all for me, and then I've kept writing. And it wasn't until 2018 when I got back to New York because I went to school in
Hmm.
fucking Indiana. I went to school in Indiana. I got back, and then finally I was in the scene. And I started
You
performing around.
are you a Fever fan?
I
So
wish
off
I knew
topic.
sports. I'm not. I know I'm not good at it. I know
It's
some. Is
okay.
Caitlin Clark involved? Is that
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, but it is what it
yeah. I
is.
don't know if I can love anything in Indiana to be honest at this point, but
That's fair. That's fair.
that was a rough place, yo.
Yeah, you're not the
Yeah.
first person that's told me that's been out there and it's been a rough
Oh.
experience. And I don't know if it was just the weather, but it wasn't, yeah, everybody was depressed. Everybody there
Yep.
seems depressed. Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely the vibe for when I was 18 to 2022. But
Yeah.
it did change my life, it opened a lot
Yeah.
of doors. I'm really grateful. But being back in New York was really where it kicked off for me in terms of performance and bookings and making it to SOBs and getting to perform at universities.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's been pretty recent. So, and hosting, I love hosting.
It's incredible. You're working almost out like another muscle that you didn't even know you had, you know? Do you feel like that, whether it was education or hitting the mics and actually getting out there and being on the scene, what part do you feel like really shaped like your style, your poetry, like how
Yeah,
the real you?
I think definitely the written poetry. I think when I was in college, I was studying how to like write poetry, but for a book, something to be
Hmm.
read on a page.
Okay.
Um, and as a quiet, introverted teen, like everything that I
Hmm.
wrote was personal and for me and for the page as well. I had a theater background, so being on stage isn't super out of like my element and
Right.
uncomfortable, but being
Okay.
on stage for poetry is.
Okay.
Um, and sometimes I honestly just don't resonate with like the slam piece. That's not for me. I know I'm not a slam poet.
Okay.
Even though I know that there's an overlap between performance, which I do love because I did theater, and poetry because that's a part of me, but never feels like the right place for me in terms of how I manifest my poetry for people.
How how
Spoken word is usually it. Yeah.
So what's the difference between slam poetry and spoken? Because I am one of those.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, every poet goes to like a slam or something. That's what it's called, But I know that's not the case. So what can you
Yeah.
just kind of break that down on?
For sure, for sure. I was teaching poetry last year to kids in the Bronx, and I'm seeing the slide that I made for them about this. So you got slam poetry, right? Slam poetry is more theatrical. It's maybe
Okay.
more body oriented. You're kind of the person on that stage is reading their poetry, right? The
Yeah.
expectation is that there's no device or kind of paper
Okay.
involved. It's really
Yeah.
just off the dome memorization. And then again,
Okay.
that body piece is important. Um, More theatrical. When you get to spoken word, you can have that device. You can have something to read off of. You're
Okay.
still having some of that embodiment, and bringing
Hmm.
life to the words, but the stakes aren't as high because with slam poetry, you're usually competing for a prize or a
Gotcha.
tournament or
Okay.
something. And
Okay.
then so spoken word is what I do. I
Hmm.
read what I got. And then you have written word, which is just I'm writing for the page with the
Hmm.
goal of this being published and read by others. And I
Okay.
think for me, I land between written and spoken, usually as a poet.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I didn't even know. So what is that spot in the Lower East Side? You probably know what I'm talking about.
Bowery poetry,
No, not
New
that.
Yorkers.
Noricans.
Yes, yes.
That's a whole different level. Like I feel like I thought at first that was like an open mic just for all artists and stuff. And I was like, man, when I
Hmm.
first moved here, I was like, I wanna get on that stage. But it's I don't those some they you can
It's the
feel
Poets Cafe. Yeah.
it's like the Poets Cafe. That's like there, and
Yeah.
I think that it should stay that kind of lane. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
just brings that vibe. I've known of a few comedians that have tried to host comedy shows there, but I definitely, and I mean they've been successful. I don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, but poetry hits different, and it's a good vibe. It's like raw. It's like a raw scene
It's
that.
raw. Yeah.
But I want to kind of go back to, I know you were mentioning connecting with internal sadness with your poetry. Um, can you can you think of a time when your art or your poetry pulled you out of a life crisis or like some type
Hmm.
of or extreme situation? Is there any poetry that you have that stashed away that is that healing space for
Hmm.
you?
What comes to mind for me is I was smiling because I've actually felt like I've created poetry in the past that caused drama. but we
Mm-hmm.
can talk about that some other
Oh
time.
no, no, next
Yeah.
after this.
After this,
But go ahead.
young me. But anyway,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I think recently, so I have a poem that I use that I think you've heard.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my introductory poem. So I use it when I'm introducing myself to a crowd for the first time.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's the quickest way I can kind of put myself out there for you to feel like you know me,
Mm-hmm.
given the fact that I have 4 minutes or less to
Mm-hmm.
kind of build that connection and that engagement with you.
Yeah.
So the poem started off as that, as kind of like functional, like how do I introduce myself to a crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as I was writing it and the more that I recited it, I realized how powerful of an enchantment it was for myself and my manifestation and my goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote that poem about, I want to say about a year ago, and half the things that I mentioned in there that are very affirmative and empowering have come back to me in really specific ways and have like
Wow.
created I think a really abundant place for me. So
Mm.
yeah, poetry as manifestation. I did a workshop on that recently, but really if you can envision what you want, put it into some words, repeat it over and over again, you're
Yeah.
kind of giving it shape in the
You
world, you
are.
know?
You're putting it's that energy that you need. You know, I was just on TikTok. I make these videos on TikTok where I'm just talking about different
Oh,
topics.
you didn't delete the app if when it went down?
I didn't know because when you delete it, that's forever. That's like
I
that's your
know. I'm bored right now.
right.
Yeah,
Oh, you did that? You
I
delete
did because I'm like,
uh
oh, I need space on my phone.
that's fair, but that was fast. Yo, you were ready to
Yeah,
let go. That's a good sign though,
yeah.
because in the end, like 9 months from now, it's I'm not trying to go to war and like go back and forth with like, what our government or people who have, control over these platforms, like what they are and
Oh,
not going to do. I don't want any of that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I I would rather that's what like people who are deleting Meta, so
yeah.
it's one of those things where we're just gonna find another avenue. This so if you're a millennial baby, you understand that like we started with a pencil, a pen, and a piece of paper. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or just out there on foot trying to do what we had to do to make ourselves known. Thankfully we grew up in a time when like the internet progressed and we have all this.
Yeah.
But there was a moment where I thought it was dumb to join Snapchat, dumb
Yeah.
to join Instagram and stuff like that. But that's what creates a platform for us, especially like I can go ahead, let's how about plug this your the show, the open mic that you guys have every
Yeah.
with this so freaking dope. Like I think the energy of that mic,
Thank you
it
for
just hit
featuring.
of course. Oh, hey, thank you for having me. It was quite an experience. I've like I said, I've already been on what with you and the other host. I've already both had you guys on my show, so we've like
Hmm.
worked with each other that way. And then it's nice when we're able to like connect and I get a chance to work in your space. You know what I mean? But that
Yeah.
show is not only is it convenient, so you will see me many, many times. Um, at for those who don't know, it's at Branded Saloon. It's called Master, and it's what every what Saturday.
It's like it's once a month. The Saturday varies, but definitely once a month. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just basically put it in a description. This particular episode, this is not going to be launched until early March. So we have
Hmm.
some time. So hopefully I'll have some in the description. I'm going to put in
Cool.
some additional information on that. But how has that experience been going? How have you felt like do you feel like that experience has enhanced
Hmm.
your poetry, or do you feel like that's something where how do you feel about the open mic scene or hosting an open mic? Just it's just a broad
Oof.
question.
I love the open mic scene. There's so many talented people, and I think we're at a time where it's really important to divest from celebrity culture in
Mm,
Hollywood and the big dreams that get sold to us, and really
yeah.
turn to each other and be like, yo, there's a superstar down the block. Like these are my homies, these are my friends, these are
Yeah.
people I can build and collaborate with. And they're sitting right next to me in this tiny bar in Brooklyn right now, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I love the open mic scene for what it means community wise,
Mm-hmm.
and artist wise. Like I'm a poet, but I also sing and I play the guitar and I was a theater kid, so I just really love the arts. I love being in the
Yeah.
arts and getting to see that wide array and like, the city
Mm-hmm.
that harvests that. That's really beautiful.
Yeah.
In terms of MasQueerAde, I'm just so I was actually when we started MasQueerAde, I think I was able to make it to two shows and then I was off to South Africa. So I got back from South Africa in October. I was there for all of August and September, and I was supporting a wildlife preserve on
Mm-hmm.
their marketing team. So I was doing content creation and hanging out with monkeys and lions and cheetah. And It
How
was
what?
wild. It was
How?
mad random.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, no, but it was a beautiful experience. But that meant that I missed 2 months of not being home and in the scene, you know.
Yeah.
And during those 2 months, the team, shout out to Danielle Barrow at Barrow Queen's Poet and DJ Sam Perez, DJ on the gram.
Yes.
They're my team at MasQueerAde, and
Yeah.
they held it down for those 2 months. So when I got back and I came to the first show and
Yeah.
saw that people were there and like actively participating and happy to be there,
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like a warm hug to be back, you know?
Mm.
And I think there's a lot of stuff happening in the open mic scene, but for a place to feel like a warm hug, like you're reconnecting with family, like you're
Yeah.
um that's something really special. So,
Mm-hmm.
and especially after the election, we had a show and it just felt really, really important to all like hold each other in that
Mm-hmm.
space.
Yeah.
Um so yeah, it's something really special and I think
Mm-hmm.
people should pull up, but we don't charge, it's free.
That
We
part. I
really
mean,
just want to hold the space, you know?
hmm and that's a great location. I've always had great memories at Brand Saloon too. Like that, like a lot of mics, a lot of uh just being able to connect with other artists in that space. I even in that space, what's crazy, artist related, but I met who would be like for the next however long. I met like some long term friends in that space,
Nice.
and it was because somebody we it was somebody that we followed each other, and we just ended up I just ended up meeting their friends, and I just had this whole friendship group for a little bit, and it was quite an experience. So that
Yep.
little location holds a space because it's very queer friendly,
Yep.
and it's just fun. It's just a good time. Um, so okay, I want to go back to I want to go back to this moment where you mentioned where there is some poetry that
Oh,
broke some
brother.
hearts on stage. You don't have to get specific, okay? Because you never
Yeah.
know who's listening, you know. And if you don't care,
Yep.
I say, hey, who cares? But I would just say
This is
that like
ages ago.
it
Yeah.
was, but have you? I guess when you were younger, is that because I know back in the day when I was in my 20s, like those are the girls that got the hoes and stuff. Like I'm playing around, but you know those are the ones that like
Yeah.
could be
Yeah.
outside because that poetry was like, come on, Flo. You know what I mean? Everybody was ready
Yeah.
for it
Yeah.
back in the day. So tell me like a little bit about that. I want to be a little
Yeah.
messy for a second.
I mean, so this was before I made it onto the scene, and I was 20 or 21. I was head over heels in college, in Indiana over someone, and
Mm,
so basically my debut kind of piece of work ends up being a whole book about this person, and we don't have the
mm,
best kind of relationship. You know,
yeah,
it's more situationshipy. It's a little
right.
toxic,
I
and
know about it.
exactly right. And don't we
This is
all?
healing. This is healing right now. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I think I mean enough time has definitely passed, but in that moment it felt like I need to do this, right? And
Yeah.
not really considering the other person, the
Yeah.
muse, right? And I think 2 or 3 years later I took it off the shelf because I was like, I don't want this debut piece of work to be something that's not one focused on other things, right?
Yeah.
That kind of
Mm-hmm.
centers this person that ultimately wasn't a healthy dynamic in the first place. So yeah, I took it off the shelf, but it did bring me more grief, I think, than it did like anything else. I mean, people paid for it. I got to like
Yeah.
visit some places to talk about it. People have copies still, but at the end of the day, don't write poetry about situationships. That's where I'm at right
It's
now. So,
honestly, hey, I've had a situationship end right before I got on stage, and this was definitely a long time ago too, and it was one of those things where it made me a really awesome I had a really awesome moment. It broke something in me. It made
mhm,
me this more open out loud person because I think that I was still holding back, you know.
mm,
So I think that that's something that even though that's the thing that you know makes you realize what you probably don't want to do or maybe you don't want to focus on because at the end of the day look at you like it could be 20 years 30 years later and you don't have any attachment to it and it's like but that thing
yeah,
is still out there you
that thing is
know.
still out there. Yeah, exactly. And I think for a while that that dynamic consumed my writing, and
Mm-hmm.
I was identifying as a love poet, but really it was just all this like pent up dissatisfaction I was having from that dynamic in that relationship and all the hurt and all the and then at one point it just kind of hit me that yo, this is not fair to me, that that the only voice I can speak through right now is is this one. So
Yeah.
right after that breakup or whatever it was, I ended up in the Dominican Republic doing research,
Mm-hmm.
and that was when the shift happened from love and relationships and
Mm-hmm.
women and straight women, because I was one of those lesbians.
Yeah.
That I went from that to I'm writing about fruit
Yeah.
and pineapples and avocados and mangoes and mountains,
Yeah.
and so definitely a shift that I think
Opened up. Yeah.
helped me find my actual voice, not one that was obsessed over something that wasn't for me anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So and I think back then I was definitely one of those using my words to immortalize you on paper type
Yeah.
of poet.
I feel that.
And I think that there's some appeal to that for people,
Mm-hmm.
for other people, but for me, I don't think we should be put like airing people out like that and then publishing it. And that's what I learned about myself, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even if I thought it was beautiful, even if I thought it was romantic and true, there's
Yeah.
other person on the side of that muse, right? Outside of that art that you created because of them. So yeah,
That that for
clipped
that
that
would
a long time
that
ago. Yeah.
that would force me into doing some heavy shadow work because I'm
And
like,
that's
oh, this
exactly what happened. Yo,
yeah.
you nailed it. Yeah, it was that. It was fruit poetry, shadow work, and then a whole new bitch, whole new person now.
Yeah, that is hilarious. I'm telling you, like, but that's the best part about when I look back, I'm like, I wouldn't change anything about my journey. I wouldn't change anything. And I say that would I want to do things differently? Absolutely. But those are where my lessons stand. Those are the lessons
Yeah,
that I got to be grateful for those moments where, as an artist, because being an artist like gives you so much freedom to just be
yeah.
fluid and just kind of, there's no bound. I
Expressive.
don't expressive. I don't believe in boundaries. Even when there are comedians out there, they're like, they shouldn't have said this. I'm like, but if we had so many restrictions to what we did and said, like, would it be called art? Would it be make us who we
Mm.
are? Because a lot of this identify like helps us identify as ourselves, which brings me to my next question that I want to ask is, how do you think art can help queer folks redefine their identities or challenge societal expectations? And you can take your time on this if you
Ooh,
need.
yeah. Oh, there's a Ocean Vuong quote that comes to mind about queerness. I'll just swing it to you if you want to use it later, but I think queerness saved me and art saved me, and I think
Yeah,
they work hand in hand.
yeah.
I think queerness is an art. I said the word expressive earlier because to me, queerness is kind of expression without limit, without boundary, especially in a society that is all about boundaries and limits and binaries and putting people into boxes.
Mm-hmm.
I think queerness is about pushing those lines, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what art is too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like art is about from thin air, from the mindscape into the world. You're creating something that tells a story, that expresses a truth, that embodies an emotion, or
Right.
and I think queerness is kind of like a another way that happens. My queerness for me manifested as cutting my hair at 15 years old, and rocking leather jackets and red lipstick around my high school hallways.
Oh my God,
That turned into
we know about those looks. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, you know exactly like it really meant kind of shattering the expectations
Yeah.
because of those lines and boundaries and binaries that
Mm-hmm.
society so desperately wants everyone to fit in.
Yes,
Uh,
that part.
um, so I think one I think they kind of have the same magic going on, queerness and art.
Mm-hmm.
But art, the layer of poetry and film in my life has
Mm-hmm.
added so much depth to my queerness.
Yes.
Because if this is the first way of expression
Mm-hmm.
that I show the world, then that's just those are just the other ways for me to do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, poetry gives me more voice, more ways to reach people.
Mm-hmm.
And when you reach people, you find community. And when you
Yes.
find community, you see yourself reflected. And when you see
Yes.
yourself reflected, you feel less alone,
So
right?
layers.
Um, layers on layers. So I think they do a little dance together, queerness and art.
Yeah.
Um, but definitely as a queer person who's an artist, um, it amplifies all the work that I do,
Okay.
and it gives intention to the spaces that I want my work in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know my work is for the people, the reflections, right? For the people who have similar lived
It
experiences and
resonates. Yeah.
that resonate. And yeah, I do have poetry that is also like transcendental in the sense of I'm often talking about spirit and the soul and
Mm-hmm.
um but it all comes down, I think, to me about expression, community, uh and truth. Like what truth are you telling
Mm-hmm.
with those words?
Mm-hmm.
Because we live in a society where falseness is supreme, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And what's truer than being like your most ultimate self outside of the boxes. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think they do a little dancey dance, queerness in art. I don't know if
Yeah.
that answered your question. Yeah.
It absolutely did. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. I did, like I said, there's not, everything is always going to be based off of your like experience of how, you know, where the steps you had to take your journey and
Yeah.
stuff like that in order to understand how to redefine like someone redefining their identity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And society immediately when we're born, we're this, and told how to do this, and we're put on a dress and just all this other stuff. And that's completely fine because at the same time, our parents only know what
Yeah.
they know. You know what I mean? So there's not any, when I look at that answer, I don't look at something that is written on paper that's out here that you can just like look up and say, hey, this is how you would define this word. You know what I mean? Or everything is
Yeah.
just based off of your experience, and everybody understands what that transformation feels like. You know what I mean? Whether you're still going through, we're always continue going through transformations. We're just in different stages of our
Yeah.
life. You know what I mean? Like who you are at 20 years old is not who you're going to be at 40. And even at
Thank God.
40, you're going to make a lot of mistakes at different levels, but you're going to know there are going to be different ways that you're going to be handling these
Yeah.
situations. But I don't think anybody should look at you and say, hey, well, you're this age, so you should be doing X, Y, and Z. No, I left that alone in the past. I'm like, no,
Yeah.
because all that's just going to do is make me more frustrated at myself and not love myself the way, you
Yeah.
know? But anyways, that's where I want to kind of wrap up this
Hmm.
right here, this segment. But I told you I wanted to go into a rapid fire segment where
Oh,
we're gonna play a little game, okay?
all right. Hmm.
And this is
I love games.
yeah, this game is fun. Uh, and just give me either the first word thought that comes to mind. There's no wrong answer, okay? Uh, let's say, all right. So, queer joy. What's your go-to dance when you feel that? If you can describe
Joker
it.
Joy, go to dance. Ooh, I don't know. I like doing a little like shoulder movement. I just start moving the
Oh,
shoulders.
I'm feeling that. That's kind
Like,
of like I get it.
ooh, what's that called though? It has a
That
name.
that yeah,
I don't
I don't
know,
know.
but
But, me either.
I
But
just
I
want to jiggy. Like, if I'm with friends and we're having a good day, I'm like, ooh,
yeah, that's like your go-to. Is like, oh, there you go, Gray's dance again,
yeah,
because everybody has a
yeah,
signature dance. I love that.
yeah.
All right. How about unicorn? What's the wildest thing you've ever written or thought about writing?
Ah. Wildest thing I've ever written. I mean, I wrote a poem called Lust. That's about being born from a hookup.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, and it's like the first line is like, I was not born from lust. I was born from a blizzard and a bust of nut. I was born from lust, thus lust I will become.
Oh,
Thank
oh,
you.
T,
Thank you.
T.
Yeah, I was really proud of a blizzard and a
Yes.
bust of nut. So thank you.
I, I love that. Yo, I'm the one in the room like, hell yeah. All right. Vulnerability. Describe it in one word or even less if you can.
Uh, vulnerability, the only thing that can save us.
Mm, mm. I like that. All right. And let me see here. This is just gonna be one. I might end up, let me see. I don't know if how I feel about this one. Uh your hometown. What's one stereotype about Queens that you absolutely love or hate?
People need to get over the fact that we have different versions of the same street. It just is what it is. Not every place is perfect. Yeah, we got a place and a road and a drive, but if you know where you're going, it'll tell you where you're going. So yeah,
Exactly. It's not that
get over
hard. Google
it.
exactly. Google
Yeah,
map it,
but
right?
the stereotype that works is that we are diverse and we have incredible food.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There you go. It does. When I've gone out there, it's either Greek. I think that's really. Is there like a heavy Greek community or a lot of restaurant
So
Greek
when if you come to Astoria, the Astoria area is very
Astoria? That's
Greek. Yeah,
mm-hmm.
I live in like the Greek area of Astoria, but Astoria has like Little Egypt also. It
Okay.
has it gets more Latinx when you get closer. to like 30th and Steinway. So, but there's so much food across Queens. So much food. You name a country, we probably have their cuisine.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to come back out to. It's just a trip. I'm in Brooklyn. See,
I
if y'all, for
know.
anybody listening, just know that like that's why you can't date nobody in other boroughs because
Long
it's
distance
it's long distance
relationships.
relationship
Mm-hmm.
all day. Ugh. Anyway, that concludes our rapid round. Thank you for being an awesome sport for that because you knew absolutely none of what I was going to
I have
say for
no
that.
idea what you were gonna say. Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk about before we wrap up. I want to talk about what's on the horizon, what projects you have coming.
Yeah, so Feb 15th, the night of February 15th, I will be performing up in Staten Island, so that's gonna be dope. I think over the next couple months, y'all might see me in a different capacity, maybe
Okay.
modeling. We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. What else I got going on? Definitely will be more shows coming down the pipeline poetry wise, but also spelling bees.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're an adult and you want to work on your literacy skills, pull up to a spelling bee and get buzzed. So
Yo, I please
yeah.
let me know when you do that
I
because I
will. I
will.
absolutely
The
will.
nerd in me absolutely needs to be front row
Absolutely.
with a
Yes.
huge beer like this big, taking shots, being like, hell yeah.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
me
yeah.
to spell out explanation without any
Exactly. Spell explanation. Yeah.
you'll
We'll
be
just get hammered.
surprised that the
Yeah.
simplest word like that is so hard to
Yeah,
I
no, we
can't
got
even
people
think.
out last time with simple words. It's kind
That's so
of, we should be
funny.
doing this. Yeah.
Oh, that's gonna be fun. So yes, please check that out. It's gonna be I'm gonna put all this stuff in the description so you
Cool.
know where to find you. But how about you just tell everyone where we can find you, what's
Yeah.
your handles and all that fun stuff.
So y'all can find me at the poet Grei. That's at the poet Grei. Also follow MasQueerAde open mic. That's mask with the queer in the middle aid open mic. And hit me up, holla at us, and come through to the shows. And thank you, Glow. This was really, really fun.
No, thank you. This is a pleasure. It was a pleasure to be able to get a chance to just connect
Yeah.
on a different type of platform. But thank you so much for coming through and just chatting with me for a little bit. I appreciate you. And for everyone else, just check the description of this bio. I'll make sure I have all your information, including your handles and stuff like that in there. That was such a great conversation. So many gems, so much truth. I love talking about how creativity can help us process identity, emotion, and everything in between. If you connected with anything Grei shared, make sure to check out her work and support her journey. That's what it's all about, right? And of course, if you're enjoying Undefining, don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. You can find us on YouTube at Undefining the Pod, on Instagram at Undefining Podcast. New episodes drop every Thursday, so I'll see you next week with another dope episode. Until then, keep creating, keep questioning, and keep redefining. See you guys later. Undefining.